rest of the season. Hadley, I think I've seen the defense play good first halves. Fresno, they played a good half, not against Texas, unless you want to say they played good in the second half, but I wouldn't really buy that. But USC and Minnesota, they played well in the first half. And do I really think that they can put 4 quarters of football together? I don't think they can put 4 quarters of championship football together, but I think the hard part is we're comparing them to last year or the defense these last 3 years, which were championship defenses. This one is not. And what happens with most defenses in college football, I'll even take you to this past Saturday in Oregon. You had Ohio State and you had Oregon. These two teams, if you said, hey, these two teams are going to, definitely make the college football playoff, one of them or both of them will be in the Final Four. I don't think you would get too many arguments for anyone. And yet, the defenses were getting worked over left and right. It used to be, prior to Michigan the last couple of years, of like bringing defense back, making defense sexy again. Defenses, you can give up a lot of yards, you can give up plays, but then you need to make a play, turn the ball over, come up big in the fourth quarter for your team. That's what this team hasn't done that. And then they also haven't been able to put 4 quarters together. I think they have the capability with some of the individual star players. We've seen like Will Johnson. He won the Fresno State. He had the big pick. I don't know about winning it, but he had the big 86-yard interception return. We saw him have the big interception against USC. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Come up with the big turnover. Derek Moore has that capability. Josiah Stewart. We know about Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. We've seen that. They've got some of the ability to create some turnovers. And to me, I'm not, thinking about 4 quarters of championship football. I'm thinking about making some plays and in winning time to be able to help this team out. That's the way I look at it. Anyways, we'll take a couple more here on the feedback. Rico says he thinks Warren and Orgy were both throwing a ton of picks in practice, which is why they didn't know who to start. Orgy sees Warren get pulled for the same picks, both threw in practice. Well, your guess is as good as anyone. My point is that you needed to be decisive and make the call for the team on the opening week. When you tiptoe into game week, if that what you're saying is true, you're not getting a lot of good play out of the quarterbacks, and you're like, man, we're just going to keep firing away. Uh-oh. No, you set the date and then you make the pick. But, that's me. That's, I've said that a million times now. So that's it. Couple more. CJ, the DJ. All right. He says they didn't put him in position to win. The OC never wanted him to play quarterback, in my opinion. Well, you start getting into that kind of stuff. Kirk Campbell, first-time offensive coordinator, first time up on the horse at a major college football program, and he's going to pick a guy? Or he's not going to put everything behind a guy because you're saying, he didn't want him to be the quarterback? You got big problems then. Like, the quarterback position is the toughest to evaluate. It's the toughest to recruit. We see it in the drafts all the time. These guys that come in and they pick, their boss left and right. That stuff all happens. And so that's the way I'm thinking that what happened here. When you start thinking about, he didn't like him. You didn't like him? Millions of dollars at stake and everything else, and he never wanted him to be the quarterback? And, this is a staff for the first time. You're in trouble when that kind of stuff creeps in. CJ, the DJ, but, I don't know. Working against each other. And even if you didn't want him to be the quarterback, and so if he didn't want him to be the quarterback and he was the one that picked Davis Warren and then they went to Orgy, are you thinking he sabotaged him? So these are the things. This kind of stuff happens with fans when you start losing. They start making things up. Like Kirk Campbell sabotaging things, or actually you didn't say that, but when you say they didn't put him in position because they never wanted him to be the quarterback, and it's his job, and his ass is on the line, and millions of dollars in the future of the possibilities when it's the first time that he's playing. Why? I would just want to know why. I don't get that part. Maybe you can answer that one for me. Why they would do that. Kirk is asking why Kirk would purposely try to lose his job if he preferred a different quarterback for his playbook. It's absurd. It is absurd. And if they were going even before spring started and Campbell didn't like him and he thought, if it was me and I knew everything that I knew now and I was in spring, I would say, Sharon, this experiment's over with Orgy. He's not a quarterback. We need to bring somebody in. These guys, these are the two that made the decision. Sharon Moore and Kirk Campbell. The biggest decision that you can make with a football team, the quarterback room. You've got the head coach, you've got the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback coach. Those two collaborate on the quarterback room. And so if the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator never wanted him in there, we got a big story. Now that they didn't perform and it didn't work and they should have put more of an offense catered to Orgy, that's always the problem. That's what I feel like when Urban Meyer's up. Oh, this is the greatest thing. You got a guy that totally does one thing, and then you got a guy over here that totally is different. Boy, this really confuses the defense. It also confuses the offense. It also confuses the offensive line. It also confuses the coaches. It also doesn't work well when you're practicing. One practice, you're practicing for a guy that's a runner, and the other one, you're practicing for a guy that is a thrower. And then you're trying to play both sides. You're going to play a little bit of one, and then you're going to play the other one. Get out of here with that. And look, so Urban Meyer, Urban Meyer's a great coach. He's the only one that's been able to do this. And oh yeah, he had the greatest college football player ever in Tebow, who was the one that's doing it. And the other one, Chris Leak, was a senior and wasn't half bad himself, who ended up leading him to a championship. So trying to duplicate what Urban Meyer did. No, hey, Urban Meyer did it. Look at Urban Meyer's there on Saturday talking about what a great job or how dangerous Michigan is because nobody knows what they're doing. Yeah, that's the point. Nobody knows what they're doing. All right. I didn't tell myself, hey, let's go in here and let's not yell about anything. Let's look forward to the second half of the season. Let's go on to Saturday and let's see. Keep it simple. Let's have a decent passing game and low turnovers. That's going to help the defense out. And to just kind of get it back on point here for the rest of the season, I can't think about – I watched Oregon and OSU play, and my thoughts in that game was that Michigan's not going to be able to stay on the field with either of those teams. But look, for the second half of the season – it sounds silly when you have 6 more games to say, well, this is a must win. But if they don't win on Saturday, the thought about can this team get bowl eligible this year comes into play. And that's not a lot of fun. So, hey, jokes about, Quickie Lane Bowl or Weed Eater Bowl, those are fine, but not being a bowl eligible, that really does come into play if you don't get a win on Saturday. You need to get a win on Saturday. And let's see a win on Saturday and beat MSU. These things are 2 achievable items. With everything that's happened, whatever you think about the coaches, Either side of the ball, position coaches, position groups, they're not doing the job. Nobody's doing it, whatever you think. If they can get a win on Saturday and beat MSU, these are two things, despite everything that we have seen and talked about in the negative sense, that they should, that they can do. And then we're talking about, all right, let's see where they can go from there. Let's see if they can get up and win 2 games that they're going to be favored in before we start talking about Oregon and going on the road to Indiana and down to Columbus. 2 games. You want to just talk about one? That's fine. I'm looking at 2. They can win them. They're going to be favorite. And let's see them go out there and do it by having a competent passing game. That's going to help everything. And let's see them keep the turnovers down. Force a couple if they can. That's all. That's how I'm looking at it. Okay. Woo! Now, Rico's just trying to get me mad now. Rico wants to talk about Ward. We want to talk about Kyle McCord. He thinks Ohio State would win against Oregon if they had Kyle McCord. Because what, he would have slid down with a second or two, and so they could have kicked a field goal in that case. I don't know. Still would have been a pretty long field goal. I don't know about that. To me, let's see them go out and get that victory against Illinois. They can do it. If Illinois would have just blasted Purdue like I was thinking they should have, I would be thinking like, man, this is a game that but Michigan, they can win this one. And they just have to keep the turnovers low, force 1 or 2, and I think it can all come together. A competent passing game can help everything, including you watching the game. It's going to help you as well.